Hi everyone, it's Kerry back with you today. So I'm back for another Mass Make Monday, and I've been creating these super cute little tag charms. I've made them in a few different styles. So this one's like a vintage style. I've used some German measuring tape here, and then I've made some with flowers, and this is just some embroidery thread. And then these little fairy ones I've made using some sort of sparkly thread. I've got a little fairy image under there. So first of all, sorry if I sound a bit croaky. We've had really bad hay fever here and I've been sneezing my head off, so it's affected my throat a little bit. Hopefully it won't be too annoying. So I'm just going to pop these over to the side. Now I'm going to show you how I've created these. I've used some of our chipboard charms that come in a set like this, but I'm also going to show you how you can make something similar if you don't have the chipboard. I've also gone ahead and printed and cut out a whole bunch of images. So I've used the mushroom image strips. I've also used the flowers, the fairies and the vintage image strips, all of which I have shrunk down to print 4 to a page. So on an A4 size page, just grab one here, I have made it print 4 of the images to the page. So I've got these little teeny tiny images. And I've already cut a bunch out, as you can see, and then I've also printed out some of the labels. I think it's from Bits and Pieces Set 1. And I printed that 2 to a page, but on the smaller setting, so I had some smaller labels and numbers that I could add to my charms. And I'm going to work just on one strip of these chipboard charms, and I'm also going to just show you the basis for if you don't have the chipboard and you want to make some. I've just got a piece of scrap paper here so I can show you the technique. I'm going to start by just stamping something on the background of my charms just for interest. And I'm using Distress Oxide in pumice stone, and as you can see it's just something in the background. It's nothing perfect. Just going to add a little bit more here and there. So if you're not using the chipboard, you would go ahead and do the same thing just on a piece of, this is just scrap paper, but I'd use a rigid card, maybe like a 200 GSM or something. So the next thing I'm going to do is decide which images I want to use on my charms. So I'll bring some of these images over. Now I'll probably just work on 3, because once you sort of see one, it's you know the same for everyone, just repeat, repeat, repeat. So maybe I'll use, let's go with one of each of the different items. Alright, so I've got some mushrooms, I've got a fairy and one of the vintage people. Now the flowers and the mushrooms I did in exactly the same way, so here we go. I've already got a mushroom cut out, so I'll use that one. And I'm just going to quickly cut out an image to use on my label, on my tag, sorry. And I'm not really being very careful about how I cut it out. And a fairy. Alright, so these will be my 3 images. Now these 2 are a little bit too long, so I'm just going to snip them off so that the end of my image lands somewhere but in this gap where the thread will cover it up. Alright, so that's what I'm going to use. Just break these ones off. And I'm just going to ink around these images. And then just using a little bit of art glitter glue, I'm just going to sort of centralise them up towards the top, just underneath the little hole. Okay, and I'll just set those over there to dry. So if you're not using the little pre-made chipboard charms, once you've got your, oops, it's not very dry. I think this is a bit glossy, this paper, so it hasn't accepted that stamp very well. I'll just grab a plain bit of paper. Alright, so I've just got a plain bit of paper here, and I'm just going to cut it down to a size sort of close to the size of the charms that I want to make. And then all you would need to do, just let that dry for a sec. So you would then decide what size little tag charms you want to make. You would probably want to measure them out if you want them even, but if you're not really fussed about it, you can just cut them into sections. And then if you wanted to make a little divot, you could use a punch if you have one, and you could just take a little piece out on the sides with a circle punch, trying to get it even. You might need to mark it if you want it to be perfect, and then you would just cut your little tag shape. So something that's sort of something like what I'm talking about. So that's how you do it without the chipboard, and then you would go ahead and glue your images on and do everything the same way that I'm going to show you for the rest of these charms. Alright, so my images are glued down now. I'm just going to break these apart, and I'm just going to ink around the edges. Okay, so for my gentleman, I'm going to use a sort of neutrally coloured thread. I'm actually going to use two threads at the same time. I've sort of got this natural coloured twine with this light blue, and I'm just going to get the ends together, and I sort of hold them in place on the back like this, and then I just start winding around the thinner parts of my tag where we have this sort of bobbin section. And as I wind, the little loose bit gets tucked in amongst everything. So then I want to turn it over and make sure that I'm covering all of my bobbin area so you can't see the image through it, and to make it look a little bit thicker. Now if you're going to leave the twine as something that can be used, so unwound, you probably wouldn't want to glue it down like I'm going to. You'd have to sort of tuck it in, but I'm just having mine as a decoration, so I'm going to snip the edges off. Then just going to take some art glitter glue, pop a healthy dob on there, and then I'm just using my silicone brush to make sure that I'm tacking that end, or those ends, in there so it doesn't come undone. And I'll just pop that one aside to dry. So with my mushroom, I want to pick an embroidery floss that's close to the colours of the mushrooms. So I've got some purples in here. That's pretty close. And again, I'm just going to do the same thing. And for my fairy, I'm going to use these two sparkly twines. Just cut those rough ends off. Okay, so my glue's not quite dry on my twine there, but I think we can still manage to keep going. So now I want to embellish my images with a label or a number or something. So I'll start with the little gentleman one, and I'm bringing in all my little number labels, and I want something that's going to match the colour. Now if I can't find a blue that goes with, I'll just use something in a neutral tone, and I like to pick just a number or something. So this little, I think it's a 26 or 826 will do for that one. And for my purple, I don't have as much to choose from. I think I'm going to go for this. It's on a plain background, but it's got purple numbers. All the cats have suddenly just come in here. I heard a loud noise just before. I thought it was a plane, but I think it might actually be thunder. So I have that one for my purple one. And then for my little fairy, I think I'm going to use a flower instead. So I've been using these little handmade flowers. I think Mum actually made these a few years ago, and I've obviously pilfered them, but we don't need to tell her. Just going to ink around these little tiny numbers. And then to finish off, I think I'm going to do a little tiny bit of stamping. And for the fairy, I'm just going to draw a little mushroom on the side. Couple little mushrooms. And I won't do any stamping on that one. So now I just need to grab some charms. key for this person. And a clover for my mushrooms. And a star for my fairy. So there we go. So I'll take photos of these at the end, because I'm sure the camera is probably not picking these up the greatest. Whoops. There we go. So really fun and easy to make, and definitely addictive. I've been making them for ages. And a great little mass make, I think. So I will pop these in with the collection. Bring that back in. So I'll pop some photos at the end to show these in a little bit more detail. I will leave links in the description box to the kits and the chipboard elements if you're interested. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you again next time. Bye!